When Iowans begin caucusing Monday, Governor John Kasich will be in New Hampshire instead, the presidential hopeful's eyes remaining on the prize in the Granite State, which has been the major focus this past few weeks. Meanwhile, his campaign picking up a big endorsement this weekend from the New York Times editorial board. They write, quote, Governor John Kasich of Ohio, though a distinct underdog, is the only plausible choice for Republicans tired of the extremism and inexperience on display in this race. Mr. Kasich is no moderate. Joining me right now is Ohio Governor John Kasich from Manchester, New Hampshire. Governor, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure, Maria. And by the way, we had good news last night. The Quad City papers in Iowa also endorsed me, and it's the third largest newspaper in that state, and that was just a wonderful endorsement to receive. And of course, here in New Hampshire, there have been 8 newspaper endorsements, and I've been able to receive 7 of them. Maria, I don't know what the heck's going on, because you know me, and you know, I ain't that great, but you know, it's pretty nice to be getting all this support out there.
You really are, and these newspapers are looking at your experience, reiterating what you've done on budget issues, among others, and talking about that as the reasons why. I wanted to start with the New York Times.
I think it's a bigger issue.
Go ahead.
I think it's a bigger issue than just experience. It's if you read them carefully, it's been the ability to get people to work together, and with some of them, it's the ability to come up with creative ideas. So it's not just experience. You know, experience, if you don't do anything with it, what's the point? But it's the ability to solve problems. That's a big part of it by bringing people together, and that's really it feels terrific to have them say that.
Absolutely, and you've made this point because the truth is that voters are tired of the back and forth of pointing fingers.
Yeah.
And want to figure out who it is that has that leadership that can bring the two sides together to actually get things done. How important is an endorsement from the New York Times? I mean, you know, obviously it's a real positive to get those newspapers in New Hampshire and Iowa to get behind you. But, of course, the first few states that we're talking about in terms of caucuses aren't exactly New York Times readers necessarily. So how important is the New York Times editorial endorsement?
Well, just think about you, Maria. What if the New York Times came out and said you were the tremendous commentator? You would love it. I can tell you who'd really love it. I'll tell you who else would love it. Your mama. Your mother would love it. I know that. And
right.
Hey, look, they made it clear that, you know, they don't agree with me on a number of issues, but they certainly know that I'm a conservative. But I welcome the gray lady. I think getting the New York Times is fantastic, along with the Boston Globe. And what it really says is this is a guy that doesn't travel, you know, in some narrow lane. He has an ability to appeal to many people who may not even agree with him philosophically. And I'm thrilled to hear that. I mean, the idea that I can take my positions but express them in such a way that people who may not even agree with the fundamental, you know, they give you credit. They say, you know, good guy, smart guy, can get things done. So I'm absolutely thrilled with the New York Times, because that with the Boston Globe and these newspapers in New Hampshire and in Iowa, that's something you never forget. It's a wonderful, wonderful tribute. And I tell you this, my wife said that she heard one of my daughters scream yesterday, and she ran running out and said, "What is it, Reese?" And Reese said, "Daddy just got endorsed by the New York Times." Now, when your 16-year-old daughter gets excited, you better be excited.
That's cool. That is pretty cool there. I'll give you that. How do you differentiate how to campaign in Iowa versus New Hampshire? So much conversation these days about how you have really focused and doubled down on New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Even you're going to be there tomorrow while they're caucusing in Iowa. So how do you differentiate what to do in these different states?
Well, Maria, the problem with, I got in July, and the problem with Iowa is it's so big. I mean, there's 5 media markets, and it's just impossible for me to put the time in there and the time in New Hampshire. So I still do the same thing in Iowa with town halls, and I did a couple. I just did a teletown hall I guess, last night, if I remember. It's been like a blur. But here, there's 1.3 million people in New Hampshire, and they're all sort of condensed. You can stand in the middle of New Hampshire and hit most of the state with a stone. In Iowa, you have to fly all over the place. So we've decided to put a lot of emphasis here. But look, we're prepared to move on. We have a ground game in South Carolina. We've got things going in Nevada. We're very strong in Mississippi with Congressman Greg Harper and former Senator Trent Lott. We're prepared to move all over the country, and we've got people who are highly skilled. But we got to come out of here. And I think we will come out of here well. We're running second in almost all the polls. We'll see. Yeah,
it's just terrific. How important is this election to the economy, Governor? I mean, last week we got some dreadful numbers. GDP showed growth of 0.7%, 0.7%. Really, really not good.
Well, Maria, look, you know, you've been the money expert for a long time, and here's the three things. You can't overregulate. You got to have common sense. You have to cut taxes for businesses and individuals, and then you have to have a fiscal plan that makes sense, and then start working on the issue of workforce. That's the formula. So if we elect somebody and they don't know how to do it, or they're not tough enough to carry out these issues and get these things accomplished, because within the first 100 days, I told Paul Ryan I'm going to have, you know, the balanced budget, the tax cuts, the regulatory reform on your desk. Your head's going to spin. And he looked at me and chuckled because he used to be an aide when I was budget chairman. We have to move quickly, Maria.
Yeah.
I was there when we did it in Washington, and it's happened in Ohio. But if we're not tough, if we're not focused, and we don't know what we're doing, we're going to keep drifting, as you know, and it just sends all the wrong signals.
And it's just not good for the average guy and gal out there who are trying to figure out how they can move the needle in their own lives. Governor, we'll be watching. Good to see you, sir. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Maria.
We'll
Thank
talk to you soon.